what about supervision at Hogwarts? These kids are very unsupervised because she's like, I gotta take him to the hospital wing. Just stay here.
Hello, everyone. To our new listeners, welcome. To our old listeners, welcome back. We are the Perspective Potterheads, Jenny B and Terri T, and we are here to discuss our favorite fandoms, starting with and primarily featuring Harry Potter content. So if you like our content, like it, and if you love it, like, share, subscribe, support.
Today we will be talking about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Chapter 9, The Midnight Duel. And while we are going to be talking about Chapter 9 in Book 1, we will also sprinkle in some fun facts from several other chapters, several other books, maybe other books that aren't even Harry Potter. You never know. So spoilers ahead.
I actually thought, and because like you sent me that picture and I posted it on Facebook about the last title.
Oh yeah,
with the potions master, and how the dust above the book spells out Severus. And so I was just thinking maybe that's one thing we could start each chapter now talking about is the artwork of each chapter. So like this one for the Midnight Duel, we got what looks like the fat lady. They're crawling back into the portrait hole.
Yes. So I'm assuming because she's in the picture that this is them going back in as opposed to coming out. Because when I originally looked at it, I was like, oh, they're leaving, but she wasn't there when they left.
Right, and you can see like those feet, like the head is in and the feet are out for the other person.
It looks like a lot of work to get up into the common room.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned that last time as far as like Neville needing a leg up and
you gotta climb up there. That makes it all the more fun and magical. Like cool places you've got to like crawl into or have a secret door.
But then it's just like you got to imagine, because like that's for kids, and like McGonagall, she's got to crawl through there too when they're acting up, and she needs to give them a talking to.
But I think like they're 11, so they're little. You would think they're like shorter, and Harry's always short. Is short for his age anyway, so he's kind of got to crawl in. But McGonagall can probably like take a big step. I don't know. So this chapter, I feel like, didn't have as much discussionary type stuff. There's some really important like setup and plot points. Whereas next chapter, I think we'll get into a little more like oomph. But this chapter, I feel like the biggest plot point setup is Harry never believed he'd hate anybody as much as Dudley. And then he met Draco Malfoy. That is how the chapter starts. And I think that animosity is really, really built in this chapter.
It's crazy because he's had a lifetime, like 11 years of Dudley tormenting him. And here it's been like, what, about a week or so?
2 weeks.
Maybe 2.
We're 2 weeks in.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks in. And he's like, I hate this guy I've only known for 2 weeks more than I've hated this kid that I've lived with and bullied me for 11 years. Exactly. Like, that is some intense animosity.
I feel like that is, but Malfoy's mean.
He is, and like I have some I have just like some points in here like as the pages go on of like I can't believe he did that, and it's not just him but like the rest of the Slytherins, and I can get why Harry feels like this. But at the same point, Harry is a hothead and he really lets it get to him.
Yes, he does. And we're not, it's actually not that far in where Malfoy takes Neville's Remember All, and Harry and Ron jump up. They were looking for an excuse to fight with him. I'm like, really? Come on. I don't go looking for excuses to fight with people. Is that a boy thing? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
My 11-year-old self would not have wanted to get into a fight.
No.
I don't have that confrontational personality.
It's like
that's a little.
It's there's a couple things going on at the beginning that I have on here, but
yeah, I skipped ahead.
Because at first they're talking about how they're going to be doing the flying lessons with the Slytherins soon, and Harry's like, oh great, this is what I've always wanted, to make a fool out of myself in front of Malfoy. Like it's like already he's thinking of these things, and it's it's just kind of funny. And it's interesting to see everybody's different reaction to hearing about flying lessons.
Yeah. Like, Harry's very nervous that he's going to make a fool out of himself, but he's very excited about it.
Yes. And Hermione and Neville are over there. Like Hermione's trying to learn all this through a book. And it's probably the only thing that she's actually anxious about, which is interesting because everything else she's so confident in.
Yeah.
And Neville is anxious too, because he's never been able to fly on a broom.
So and I love the comment that he has an extraordinary amount of accidents with 2 feet on the floor.
Yeah. I
am one of those people. I like trip over thin air, fall up the stairs. And my third is the same way. He falls out of his chair regularly. His teacher actually had to switch his chair because he falls out of it all the time. And he was getting his foot stuck and she was afraid he was going to break his ankle. Like, that's what I picture when I picture Neville, is how I navigate the world in my klutzy, clumsy state, as well as my little.
See, what I think of Neville is like when they say his grandma wouldn't even let him near a broom. So then he has no chance to practice those skills when he's younger and is supposed to be making those mistakes. And I equate it to like when we have our preschoolers and they're all practicing with scissors and their parents are like, oh, we never let them use those safety scissors just because scissors and babies, or not babies, but kids can be dangerous. But they have to use that skill. And if you don't use that skill when you're younger, then you can be behind a little bit in the, like, if you don't practice with scissors, then you're not as adept with scissors when it's time to use scissors, and it could delay your fine motor skills.
Very true.
So if Neville is not given the opportunity to fly, then he's going to be, or do any of those magical things, then he could be more inept because they didn't give him the practice.
Do you think Augusta was protective of him because he was all she had left? I mean, she lost her son and her daughter-in-law. Well, they're alive, but.
Right. How protective is she? She lets great Uncle Algie throw him out the window. So.
Very true. Very true. I hadn't thought about that one. I don't know. There's some. Neville's grandmother is a fascinating character.
Mm-hmm. I wish we got to see a little bit more of her.
And I think we get a little more like snippets as the books progress, but like she's very old school and she really does want great things for Neville. And I feel like that makes Neville feel inadequate. The way she goes about it is not maybe the best.
We see some of that when we come to the OWLs, because she thinks that charms is a soft subject, but that's because she's no good at charms. So she just doesn't encourage Neville's strengths because she does want him to be the person that she expects him to be, not the person he is. But it's also nice to hear that conversation about McGonagall saying that, that pretty much that, especially after what happens at the Ministry. And when McGonagall shows that little bit of pride in Neville, then he starts to get a little bit more confidence in himself too.
And as Neville,
and then we see that come out even more in the 7th book when Harry's gone and somebody has to take charge. So it's going to be him.
I love the character of Neville and how he evolves to this, like from what he is in book 1 to what he is in book 7. Like, I mean, he kills Nagini. He talks about how his grandmother's proud of him. He made her proud largely by being himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's just fantastic. And it's hard. Like I can imagine parenting in general is hard. And I can't imagine what it would be like to parent your grandchild because of tragedy, but it's really hard not to put what you want on your children. Like letting them explore and be their own person sometimes is like painful.
Yeah. Like, we're raising our children to be Harry Potter fans. And if that's something that they don't want, oh my gosh, it's going to break my heart when she gets old enough and says, I don't want to like Harry Potter, Mom.
They like,
I'll have to let her do that. But
mine used to say that when I would listen to the audiobooks, like, you're listening to that again. But then we started reading them as a family and we got to watch the movies and, we're working through that as a group project kind of thing. And they really enjoy it now. But yeah, it is hard. It's like, I want to wear black lipstick. And I'm like,
I did that. They'll grow out of it, or they'll grow more in depth into it. And then that'll just become who they are.
I had black nail polish. I wanted black nail polish, and I remember my stepdad buying it for me and it being a big thing. But it's one of those like, okay, you do you. My 11-year-old is very different from me, and it's very fun to watch that difference. But it's hard. It's hard, like even subconsciously, like when I go shopping, I will buy her things and I'm like, will she like this or do I like this? Do I like the idea of her liking this? And you really have to watch that because it's so easy to be like, ooh, I like this sweater. It would look so cute on her. That's completely not her style. She's not a sweater kid at all. Sweaters are not her thing unless it's my sister's ugly cow sweater that is 3 times too big for her and she loves it.
See, we're getting ready for Luna's baptism and everyone's like, you got to get her one of those little bow things for her head. I'm like, it would be adorable, but Luna does not like to wear things on her head. The day she was born, we put those hats on. She'd pull them right off.
Aww.
She does not wear hats. She does not like bows or those things. And it's like, I'm okay with that. But if anybody buys her something, you wasted your money. So she doesn't wear dresses. And that's kind of a both of us thing. Like, I don't like putting her in dresses and she doesn't like to wear dresses. But for some occasions, like the baptism, she's going to wear a dress. Like, and she can handle it for a day.
Yeah. See, Ellie's the opposite. She loves to, I put bows on her all the time and she likes it. She doesn't like occasionally, like she doesn't like it if they start falling, but she leaves them on, which is surprising for a baby. She likes her, she leaves on her bows. She leaves on her hats. She likes to be accessorized, but she's super chill. Evelyn as a baby would pull the bows and stuff. I still put them on her. I have pictures of her. I would get a picture of her with the big bow on and then she would take it off and chew on it. And, you know, Ellie's still little. So who knows? My girls are a little bit different. Like I said, Luna reminds me a lot of my older two.
Yeah.
Those firstborns, very, very needy.
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
So Neville gets a remember-all from his grandma because he forgets things. But it does not do any good to know that you forgot something if you can't remember what you forgot. And Neville runs into this problem. And I have that problem all the time too. I'm like, I know I'm forgetting something, but what am I forgetting? And then the second you stop thinking about it and you're just like, I'm going to go on with my day. Oh, that's what it was. And then
yeah, it's usually when you get to the car after you've put the groceries in that you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I needed mustard.
Yeah.
That's me. Usually it's, oh, we ran out of ketchup. And I forgot that we ran out of ketchup. And then the next time we have French fries, I'm in trouble because I didn't buy any ketchup. So I also have a note about Dean and his West Ham poster because he likes soccer. And Ron's like, why do you like that? That's boring.
Right. I don't know. I played soccer in high school. But to watch soccer, like to play soccer is fun. To watch soccer is boring.
I've never watched professional soccer. I've watched my kids play soccer. My kids love soccer. They did fall soccer this year and they had a blast with it. Minus Alex. He's still very little.
The dandelions.
Yeah, he was much more interested in the flowers and the snack that they got at the end of it. And talking to his friend. My other two were surprisingly, like Evelyn is usually not that into sportsy things, but she really enjoyed soccer. She had a fantastic coach. But it was a fun experience for me as a parent to watch them play soccer. But yeah, I get it. Like I don't watch professional sports, period.
Right.
That's not my thing. I'm not a sports person. I've never been a sports person. I usually take a book when we go to a baseball game. Like
yeah. I've gone to baseball games and I just normally don't get into them. I'm there for like the chance because those are kind of fun sometimes. And I only go if like somebody's got free tickets. I watched the Super Bowl because we put bets on it and the bets are just for bragging rights. This year I lost horribly and like I only got 2 of them right. And then we did, which I didn't even get to watch it this year because I had COVID when the Super Bowl was going on. But I did go back and watch the halftime show on YouTube and I liked it, but I'm also old. So like a lot of nostalgia there for me. I don't even know where I'm going with this because it does nothing to do with Harry Potter though. Like we're way rabbit holing this time.
Rabbit holed a little bit there, but yeah,
a lot of it.
I'm not a sports person. I don't know. Maybe I'd like Quidditch. It sounds exciting. Even Hermione, who's not really a sports person, she kind of seems like not a sports person. She'll go watch Quidditch. But I think it's in book 5 where she's like, my happiness doesn't depend on Ron's goal scoring abilities.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. Like, diehard Browns fans, like, more power to you. You guys get some devotion, but I don't want my happiness to depend on the Browns scoring abilities.
So I don't know if you've ever seen the IT Crowd, but it's a British sitcom, and
I've seen clips.
Okay. Yeah, with Alan being your husband, I'm sure he probably gets a good kick out of it. But pretty much what they talk about, like they try to fit in by watching soccer with the guys, with real men, and they try to be real men. And, you know, he's all like, he supports West Ham, you know, and so he's hanging out with a bunch of people who like West Ham, and it's hilarious. But that's pretty much how I am too. Like I have nothing about what's going on, but I just pretend like I do. Sometimes I'll just nod and shake my head and agree, when people are talking about sports. And they're like, oh, do you actually know anything about it? No. I'm just being polite.
I got a little bit into rugby.
A little bit into hockey.
I was into rugby for just a little bit because it's incredibly like full on, like, and you can yell things like stomp on his head and nobody like looks at you weird. I don't know.
Right.
I was in college. I attempted to play rugby one time. That did not go well because I was playing with a bunch of big boys and it just was bad. I was pretty sore.
I played a little bit of street hockey in college. But like the thing is I couldn't skate and hold the stick at the same time. So I was just in my sneakers running around. But my ex-husband used to play goal, and I can skate, I can ice skate, and I can handle a stick when I'm in tennis shoes, but I cannot multitask them. So it was fun though. I had a lot of fun doing it. And occasionally I'll turn on, like if I'm at the casino and they've got hockey going, I'll watch a game because sometimes that's more fun. All right, so we're getting back to flying, I guess.
So we got the remember all, and then they're going out to flying. And flying lessons are at 3:30 in the afternoon, which I think is interesting. Their school day, they have like an hour lunch. So their school day goes a little bit later. Like they are in classes up until dinner, which I find interesting. Like, you know, these are like middle school-ish age kids. So they're 11. Yeah, Evelyn goes to middle school next year. So they are middle school age kids. And I'm thinking like Evelyn is going to be getting off the bus at like 2:30, 3 o'clock is the end of her school day. Whereas they're still like in classes at 3:30.
But are they actually doing like, do they have like an 8-hour block where they go to school like the whole, like, cause ours is like class after class after class, you get a lunch, then you go back to class and class. Whereas I feel like this is a bit more like how college is set up. You have class blocks periodically, but you get breaks in between them, or depending on how your schedule kind of
I think when they get older, they have more breaks, but like they have a morning break, they have breakfast, they have a morning break, they have lunch, they have class, and they have dinner. Because they talk about going straight from classes to dinner or dropping off their books and then going down to dinner. But Europeans tend to eat dinner later. That was like the biggest thing about when I lived in Italy, like getting used to eating dinner at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, that's late.
But it was nice because
they start their day. They start their day later too, though.
They take a nap.
Oh, okay.
It was so nice. I could so go for that schedule. Like we'd get up, we'd eat, we'd get on the train, we'd go, or we'd either have class or we'd go straight into the city. So we were getting on the train midday. We'd eat lunch in the city. We'd explore. We'd ride the train back. And then when we get back, everything was closed. Like there was a little shop up by the train station that was closed. We couldn't walk into town because nothing would be open. Like things were closed. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you'd take a nap if you're me, because I'm starving all the time. You'd get a snack and you'd get up and do like homework or whatever you wanted to do, eat dinner, and then we would walk into town. So arguably like I would take a good chunk of an afternoon nap. And then I would stay up very, very late, get up early. And that was just kind of the whole like rinse, repeat.
Yeah. I've heard that's how our bodies are supposed to function though. Like, and like our bodies are supposed to get 8 hours, but not just like overnight, but throughout a 24-hour period, our body's supposed to get those 8 hours of sleep. And it's good to get like 6 hours and then another 2 hours later or something. But I don't know. I feel like being more industrialized and people needing, like, you know, your company needing you to have to work gets, you know, they put the productivity over the person. And that's just where we are as a society, especially in America.
Well, right now, working part-time, I end my day at 2:30, and it's great because I am not really productive after about 2 o'clock. So it's interesting, like, I'm arguably more productive at work now than I was when I was working full-time. And my like, I am no further, I'm managing the same caseload, doing the same amount of work in half the amount of time. And it's not, I'm not failing at it. So that's a good thing. But anyway, so their 3:30 flying lesson with Madame Hooch, who I actually, like, in my head, I picture her like her movie character, by the way.
Yes. Even down to like the yellow eyes, which is kind of weird because in a non-wizarding world, yellow eyes means there's something wrong with you. Like you're jaundiced or you got liver problems, something. But she's not the only one with yellow eyes too. So I figured that this is somewhat normal in the wizarding world, I suppose. Because I think it's Rufus Scrimgeour and even Filch has lamp-like eyes.
Yeah.
And I think there's another person with them too, but I can't remember who it is.
And are they yellow or are they more like a yellowy green? I always kind of picture almost like cat eyes. So I like how Harry likens brooms to horses.
Yes. I can see that.
They definitely know that Neville and Hermione do not want to get that off that ground. They're scared. So Neville jumps the gun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Madame Hooch doesn't, like, she's like, okay, what are you waiting for? Like,
let's do this. Come on, guys.
So, and she does kind of give them a little bit of instruction, seems a little bit more clear than what Snape had given them. But I mean, she tells him what to do and he does it. Like, does she not have, is there no contingency plan at all for if somebody gets a little carried away?
Right?
Like, seems like she's just not prepared.
At all. So now,
like, this has never happened? Come on.
You gotta have one in every year. Could you imagine her trying to teach the Creevies to fly?
Right. Or kids who just get like overzealous, or like Fred and George goofing around or something like that. Like, they're just going to take off and be like, how do you control a class that says, especially with their kids, they're like, we know what we're doing. And then they zoom off. Like, they could go anywhere on those brooms. How do you rein them in so that they don't fly off? Because every class has somebody who misbehaves, doesn't want to follow the rules. I cannot see there being a time where there's not one kid who doesn't have that unruly behavior. That's just like, I want to fly. You can't keep me here. Like, and then they just zoom off. Like, I mean, in a more controlled aspect, probably, but.
And it's still like so new to all of them. Like, they've only been at school for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And, you know, she wanders. Okay, this is where I'm like, really? What about supervision at Hogwarts? These kids are very unsupervised because she's like, I got to take him to the hospital wing. Just stay here. Just stay here. Don't touch anything. Come on. Somebody's going to touch something. Somebody's going to get on those brooms and fly around. And that's what happens.
Yeah. And it's interesting because she tells them when they're hovering to lean forward and then come back down. So I would assume that lean forward is like the direction that you go to stop and go down. But then Harry later leans forward to speed up.
I think it's a matter of where you like point the broom handle. So like if you're pointing the broom handle down, but if you lean straight forward, like out and hold the handle of the broom out, you go forward.
Okay.
I basically feel like steering a broom is like whatever the front of that broom is, wherever it is, and you point it, it's going to go that direction. So if you want to go up, you tilt your broom up. If you want to go down, you tilt your broom down. If you want to go forward, you lean forward and push this way.
And when you call your broom up, she says to step up and put your right hand over the broom and say up.
What if you're left-handed?
Exactly. And I mean, because your right hand isn't always your wand hand. because Ollivander says, which is your wand hand? And Harry says, well, I'm right-handed. And he just kind of dismisses that. So I would assume that you would use your wand hand for your broom.
But it's interesting teaching fine motor skills to kids. You almost automatically assume they're right-handed unless they show you otherwise.
Yeah.
So maybe same thing with this.
Unless, although this would be backwards, I would think, in Britain, but like when you're driving, your gear shift is on the right.
Maybe it's just like driving. Like there's no, it doesn't matter. Like everything's on this side for me. Doesn't matter if I'm right-handed or left-handed.
Although again, in Britain, like their cars, they drive on the other side. So that would be, they're shifting with their left hand.
I don't know.
But I don't know. But maybe
it has nothing to do with handedness. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because of the way that she's lined up the brooms and wants them to stand. But I just thought that was interesting because, and maybe that's it. Because maybe your wand hand, like if Hermione's left-handed, maybe that has some, but she just wants them to go in order for her organization. Then maybe some of these people aren't having as much oomph as they could because they're using their wrong hand. I have no idea.
I do like that Malfoy's grip has to be corrected. He's been doing it wrong for years.
Right.
And how Harry and Ron are like, ha.
Have you ever seen Bedknobs and Broomsticks?
Yes, it's been a very long time.
Yeah, they have it on, I think it's free on YouTube somewhere maybe to watch, because I watched it relatively recently, like a few months ago, and she's trying to be a lady with the broom, and then it's just not working with her, so she just like straddles it and she's like, all right, we're doing this my way now. It's really funny. It still holds up to me.
I love how she tries to, like, she's really, really working at that being a witch thing, and it's kind of fun. So Neville's nasty, or not Neville. Malfoy is very nasty about Neville falling. And I like how everybody, like even like Pavardi says, shut up, Malfoy.
Yeah, I have that in here. Like Pavardi is the first one to speak up against Malfoy and for Harry when McGonagall comes. Like she's the one who starts it and says, but hey, and you shut up, and McGonagall, it's not his fault. But it's not just Malfoy, because like all of the Slytherins are laughing at what Malfoy's saying. Yeah. So they're all jerks. Like there's not one Slytherin who's gonna.
But Malfoy's the cool kid, and he's got all the sweets coming from home, and he's got the money clearly.
So do you think that there's at least like one background Slytherin who's like laughing out like externally to fit in, but then internally they're like, I feel like this is wrong, but I just can't say anything because it would hurt my chances to be part of my house?
I don't know.
I don't see any of them in this year.
I don't see that because they're all like, you've got to think like we've got Crabbe and Goyle who are basically
his cronies,
stooges.
Yeah.
Pansy, who wants to be Malfoy's girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Zabini, even though he's not mentioned.
Right.
They're all not nice people.
Yeah, I think Nott is one of them, and we know that his dad's a Death Eater, so he's kind of all in the same crew.
Millicent Bulstrode, she beats up Hermione in the next book.
Right. So yeah, so at least in this year of Slytherins, we don't meet any of them that have very redeeming qualities.
Right.
I feel like Malfoy has a good redemption later, but
right now he's a jerk.
And I feel like it's a very missed opportunity when he gets that redemption. Like, I feel like that needed to be expounded on more so than Snape's.
I feel like Malfoy, we can almost, because Malfoy's a kid and you don't know what you don't know. And this is how he has been raised. This is how he has been brought up. This is how he has been taught. Like, I mean, his father bullies to get his way. So Malfoy bullies to get his way. Same thing with Dudley. Like, Vernon is a bully. Dudley is a bully. It's a learned behavior. And they don't, like, Malfoy doesn't know anything different until he realizes like how hard this is, when it's either you do this or I kill you and your family.
Yeah.
And
it's like we get to see glimpses of it in 6 and in 7. And even in the epilogue, they could have done more. Like they could have shown them to be more friendly aside from just nods.
I don't think they're friendly though. I don't think
would have loved to see them become friends though.
I don't think that's happening.
That's
I
part of what I really like. The only thing I like about Cursed Child is I like that there's a friendship forged between Draco's son and Harry's son. I think that's cool. And I don't know if it's specified or not, but there almost seems like there's a bit of a relationship between them. I think know.
Rowling sets up, Ron telling Rose, don't get too friendly with him. And it just, I'm like, ooh.
I almost want to see her like do the opposite and go for him because of that forbidden love angle. Yeah. But I also think that there's something between I can't remember their names because
Scorpius and
Albus, yeah. But I don't know. We'll have to read that eventually too, once we're finished with all of these books.
I have only read that once, and I sat down and I read it in one day.
Me too. And I hated it.
I was not a fan, but I sat down, I read that whole thing with a week and a half old baby. We sat in the chair and read a book today.
I read it once. I hated it. There are some things that I can recall from it, but
it's a long time ago.
I do need to read. Well, when we're all done, we'll get there again and force ourselves to sit through it chapter by chapter. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of stuff to say about that when it comes up.
Oh, yes. So now we have the big Harry and Malfoy argument fight. Malfoy takes off with that remember all and says, come and get it. And Harry's like, doesn't even think. Like, there's no hesitation. He jumps on that broom and just goes. He hasn't been on a broomstick since he was a year old.
Yeah, which he doesn't know about.
Yes. But is like riding a broomstick kind of like riding a bike. Like, once you do it, you're good. You know how to do it.
Maybe. Like they almost make it seem like there's like some sort of intrinsic hereditary thing. Like, if your father was good at flying a broom, so therefore you are. But I almost equate that to your mom was good at driving a truck, so you must be.
I feel like broomstick riding is a little more sports-like. So I can say like my husband has a lot of like really good like sportsy type skills. He did that sort of stuff. And my Jamie is the same way. He is very naturally athletic. He has some natural athletic abilities. He's very agile. He's very coordinated. He did not get that from me because I can't walk across a flat surface without falling over. Like my biggest fear when I run or when I do yoga is I'm going to hurt myself purely because I fall over or trip on something. And then I'm going to be like broken. I hurt my foot the other day and I didn't even know how I did it. Okay. So I think that there is a natural, I think that sort of thing, like kids can be naturally more inclined to be athletic or not, just based on their level of coordination and hand-eye abilities and motor skills, and that I'm not. So there is a little bit of that, I think.
But like when he's in the air and Malfoy's taunting him and Harry brings up the fact like, but there's no Crabbe or Goyle here. And Malfoy realizes that he's like, oh, he is kind of nothing without them to back him up.
And that's interesting because Malfoy is not a very big kid. He's, he's thin. He's small. Like he's not an imposing physical threat.
Yeah.
They don't know enough magic to be magically threatened by each other yet.
Right. And Malfoy is he relies on his father's clout to get him through. My father this or Crabbe and Goyle have my back, so that he doesn't actually have to do anything. He just gets what he wants because of who he knows, not on his ability.
Exactly.
And he's a good flyer, but then he gets corrected on his grip. Like, so I doubt that shook him too much, but it probably embarrassed him a little bit because he was bragging about it. So now he has to show off a little bit to show I can fly and I'm still good because I took this and he fell. So let's laugh at him. And it's a lot of deflection to show how he's the best, but then he has nothing to prove it. necessarily.
So McGonagall comes racing out of that castle.
Yep.
And she's like, never in all my time at Hogwarts. How dare you? Might have broken your neck. Like, she's worried about him. And then in the back of her mind, she's like, oh, yeah, he's going to be a seeker. Like, and I like how she just doesn't like say anything to him. She just lets him march along behind her. And he's like, I only made it 2 weeks. I'm going to be expelled. Oh.
And he doesn't even try to defend himself. Like, this first year Harry is quiet. He's in his head. And then I think to like 5th year Harry, when he's shouting out to Umbridge against and telling him, and then he's in McGonagall's office and
I was telling the truth.
Yeah, he stands up to her. He's like, I got to defend myself because this is what's going on. And I'm going to, I told her off and I'll tell you what's going on too, so that you understand my side. And in this, he doesn't even try to
he's just like
onto anybody else. He's like, oh my goodness. Oh no. I
like how he thinks maybe he can be Hagrid's assistant.
And then that is like so sad to like, when he goes into that, thought process of being there, but watching all of his friends learn magic while he's not. And then you've got to think that's what Hagrid had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that how devastating that must have been for Hagrid. And yet through all of it, Hagrid still is
good person.
Very cheerful. Yeah.
And then I like how she asks Professor Flitwick, could I borrow wood for a moment? And she's like, and all he thinks is, am I getting beaten? Poor Harry. Like, because that's in his head. Mm-hmm. That didn't just like, oh, I wouldn't go if the principal, if a teacher said that, I wouldn't think they were going to beat me.
Yeah. But then again, with the Dursleys,
that's what he knows.
Yeah. And it's crazy that this is so important. She's got to pull him out of his lessons.
Right?
But then again,
he's in 5th year, so they're getting ready for he's learning the things he needs for OWL. So like, she really thinks this is important.
Right. And they walk into a room and Peeves is in there and he listens to her.
Yeah.
Like, we've been told that he only listens to the Baron, but I mean, aside from, I think he blows her a raspberry and throws the chalk in the bin, but then he zooms off. So that's pretty good listening skills for Peeves, considering.
Yeah. I like that he's writing rude words on the blackboard. I love Peeves. I do. I think he adds that element of mayhem and fun. And we see him twice in this chapter. So this is the first time he's writing rude words on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And she just gushes about how Harry caught that after a 50-foot dive and, Charlie Weasley couldn't have done it. Apparently Charlie is a really good seeker.
Yeah. I think they say somewhere he could have played for England.
Yes. If he hadn't gone off chasing dragons. I think Wood says that.
Yeah. I think that's in the next chapter. But so they might have already had secret tryouts, or they didn't have secret tryouts yet. Is it just that do they just not do secret tryouts, or was nobody else good enough? Like, because it would suck if they already did the tryouts and they're like, we have a seeker, and then Harry comes along without even trying out, and then they're like, by the way, you're the seeker now because of that one thing that you did that was illegal, and we have to bend the rules for. So either that, or they just nobody tried out for seeker.
Yeah, I don't think they've had trials yet. That would be my assumption, is that they haven't, or that no one signed up for them.
Yeah, I don't remember if he said at the beginning of the feast to give the names to the head of house.
I'll peek back at that. My next comment is on the brooms, though, like that he is.
Oh yeah, that we have to get him a new broom. What kind of? They mentioned the Nimbus or
a clean sweep.
Yeah. So, and I think Harry saw the Nimbus earlier when he was in Diagon Alley.
Yes.
Where does that money come from? Is it something that they take out of his account to pay for him?
I always wondered. I think McGonagall buys him his broom. I really do. I think she's that vested in Gryffindor.
Well, and she does say she's going to write to Dumbledore to see if he can bend the rules.
Yes.
So, which again, if it was like, what happens if Hufflepuff, like if he was a Hufflepuff and Professor Sprout saw somebody make that, would he bend the rules for them? Or come on, we know they're bending the rules because it's Harry Potter.
Yeah. Quidditch Trials will be held in the second week of term. Anyone interested in playing for their house team should contact Madam Hooch.
Yeah. So we're still in the second week, so they might not have had the trials yet. They're just contacting her by this week. So
I did look that up. I flip my page over. So he gets back to dinner and Ron is like, what happened? And he's like, hey, I'm going to be the new Gryffindor secret, but shh, don't tell anybody. Mm-hmm. And then Fred and George come over.
Right.
They're excited. I love when Fred and George talk about Oliver Wood because they like, Wood is this, in my mind, this very masculine figure. And they're like, you must be good. He was practically skipping. You know, he wasn't actually skipping, but I love how Fred and George just perceive things.
The movie Wood is so much more different than the way they describe him in the books. So yeah, like they describe him more like blockish. In my mind, he's more square. And
in my mind, I picture Wood to be like what you would think of as like your stereotypical football player. Mm-hmm. And that's in my mind what that image conjured up. Somebody very athletically built, broad shouldered, like,
yeah,
you know. And I like how Malfoy's like having a last meal. Like Malfoy thinks he got Harry expelled. Mm-hmm. He didn't. He actually did him a favor. And I think they rub that in his face later when he gets his broom.
Yeah. Which, and that's the thing, is like Malfoy's always starting things, he's always antagonizing. And then when things escalate, he has to backpedal. Like when they were up in the air, he's the one who started it, but then he realized, I can't do this. So he had to throw the Remember All and de-escalate the situation he started. And now it's like the same thing. He's going up to him. He's laughing at him. He challenges him to a wizard duel. Probably doesn't expect him to accept it. He does. And then he has to weasel out of that too.
I like how when he's picking his second, he looks over at Crabbe and Goyle like, It says he's sizing him up. Like, which one's bigger?
Yeah.
Crabbe. I love that when Ron's talking about the wizard's duel, like he's like, I don't know if he tries to curse you, just dodge it because I don't know how to block that. He's like, just throw your wand. And Harry's like, what happens if I wave my wand and nothing happens? He's like, throw it away and punch him in the nose.
Right. Duh. Which is an interesting thing because Malfoy says wands only no contact. So then Harry would be breaking their gentleman's agreement of dueling if he were to,
And Malfoy's bringing Crabbe with him, so that's probably not a great idea because Crabbe's going to beat them all up.
Because I can't see Crabbe having as much wand skill either. So
they barely pass each year. I think it says that like in the one that they were hoping he would fail out because he's like as stupid as he is big or something like that. I think they said.
And then Hermione, she mentioned a few times during here, but everyone's just dismissing her. Like when Harry goes to fly up and Hermione's like, no, you shouldn't. You're
gonna get in trouble.
Just ignores her. And then again here, it's like, you shouldn't be doing it. And then they just ignore her again. And I am really surprised because she actually says at one point that she should have told Percy, but then she doesn't, which is kind of out of character for her because she's
not a snitch.
Well, there's a difference, and we talk about this with preschoolers who like to tattle all the time, and it's
but they're 11 but and it doesn't matter if it's safe or not. It's
the same rules do apply though.
I know,
because if you're doing something that's not safe, then that's when you need to tell somebody. So but it's because if somebody's just doing something and it's annoying, it's annoying, but if it's something that's not safe, then you need to tell somebody so that they can help keep things safe.
Yes. But they're 11.
Yeah, I know. But Hermione is 12 and she is that bossy know-it-all, and she wants to follow the rules, and she doesn't want her house, the points that she works so hard on, to, to be lost and everything like that. And Harry, he's going through his head at this point, and he's just like, well, he knows he's pushing his luck by breaking another school rule in the same day that he just broke a rule, but he just got rewarded for breaking a rule. But before he was rewarded, he was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get expelled. And now he's like, I'm going to risk being expelled because I got to stand up to Malfoy. He pisses me off. He's such a hothead. He knows what's at risk here, and yet he's willing to do it just because he doesn't like Malfoy.
That impulsiveness. You just see it. It just nope, this is what I'm doing now. Consequences, not important. Yeah. I like that Hermione is in the common room. They get in there and Ron's like, you go back to bed, go away.
I love at some point they say she's like a hissing goose, and I just love that analogy. I can just see it, and so vivid to me about the hissing goose thing, and I'm sure that's what I sound like to Matt most of the time.
Exactly. Go, and they're just both like, go away, we don't want you. And she's like, fine, I warned you. And she turns around, fat lady's gone.
So this fat lady guarding the portrait hole, right? This is the weirdest level of security I can ever think of, because kids can just wander out of her at any time. They're supposed to be in their room, and they're like, no, she lets them go out even when she is there. She can't do anything to stop them. And then if they come back, and what if there's a danger on the outside and they're trying to get in and they can't because she's not there? So, I mean, come on, you can't really blame the kids for being out in the corridor if the portrait is gone.
Right.
So I feel like that's just a horrible
security. Filch is always up patrolling the corridors. When does he sleep?
Yeah.
Because he's up during the day too. Is he just one of those non-sleepy people?
Maybe he just takes naps when the students are in class and then wakes up when they're in between, when they're supposed to be roaming the corridors more. Or sometimes the teachers do night shifts too. So
and here's another sad thing. Nobody bothered to check on Neville. So he's been sleeping out in the corridor.
But so he says that Madame Pomfrey mended his arm in a minute. So he would have had time to go to dinner and to go back up to the common room when everybody else did.
I know.
But, so why didn't he?
Did she just keep him for a little while? Sometimes she does that. When she mended Harry's skull, she made him stay there for a bit. So it's mended, but I want you to rest here for a little bit. Or maybe he was embarrassed and asked, it still hurts. Can I stay?
Yeah. And the Baron goes by him twice. And it doesn't even help him. He doesn't say anything.
I don't think the Bloody Baron's a helpful ghost.
Yeah. But there are also portraits throughout the castle. He can't talk to any of them, or none of them are helpful. There's no other ghosts or anybody else.
Where's Nick?
Yeah.
I do like that Ron threatens that if they get caught because of Hermione and Neville, he's going to learn the curse of the bogies that Quirrell told us about. And I like how Hermione opens her mouth and it says, perhaps to tell Ron how to use the curse of the bogies. But Harry's like, shh, shut up.
So what's interesting about the curse of the bogies is if it's the same
bogey hex.
Yeah, Bat Bogey Hex that Ginny learns, that means she learns it in her first year and she just excels at it. And just how when Harry learns Expelliarmus and that is his spell, this is the very first one that Ginny kind of learns. And
Ginny manages that one good.
Yeah. So good that she's part of the Slug Club. And so they're in the trophy room, and after Filch comes and they run away, and Hermione's like, Malfoy tricked you. He had no intention of coming. He just wanted to get you in trouble.
Which is true.
It is true. And this is where Hermione starts being right, and she's always right. And it's a long string of, but Harry and Ron never listened to her advice.
Or Hermione is like Half-Blood Prince.
Mm-hmm.
She knew there was that something isn't right. But it's interesting though that she's always like, but Dumbledore trusts Snape, but Dumbledore trusts Snape. And
she's still right in that. Even though our perspective is fun, she is still right in that. And even in the 5th one, where she's like, but Voldemort knows how to use you, Harry. And she, he's taken serious because he wants you to see this. Or how do we know that he's even got serious to begin with? But Harry always dismisses her.
And she's right about the house elves. Like,
yep.
People will pay for how they treat house elves. Sirius did, Voldemort did.
Yep.
Ooh, I cannot wait to get to talk about Creature.
I know.
So they run away, and of course Neville falls. Trips into armor. Runs into Ron. They knock down a suit of armor. No quiet escape, so they're booking it.
Yeah.
And then they run into Peeves. And I think Peeves might have let them go. Possibly. But Ron, being Ron, takes a swing at him. Like, yes. Get out of our way. But then Peeves doesn't rat them out because he could say, hey, they're right there.
Right. But Peeves enjoys the chaos. Mm-hmm. So, and if he can cause more chaos, then all the better for it. Mm-hmm. So after they're running from Filch, from Peeves, they're at that locked door, and Hermione takes Harry's wand.
She doesn't even have her wand with her, which surprises me. Like, you don't have your, but the only thing, because I like highlighted that, I'm like, she doesn't have her wand. Why does she take it? She doesn't have her wand with her. But it's only 2 weeks into them being in the magical world, and she's Muggle-born, so it's not second nature yet.
Yeah.
So, I might need this.
Yeah. And then she uses Alohomora, which is apparently a first-year spell. So any first year and above can get through a locked door and be face-to-face with a 3-headed dog.
Right.
That's excellent security.
Exactly. Like, I know they've been said, this is forbidden. I'm surprised Fred and George haven't tried to get in. Like,
yeah.
The forest is out of bounds and they try to go there all the time.
And there's nobody guarding the outside of it. So, which there really should be.
So they walk in.
Or some sort of imperturbable jinx or spell or something that just makes you want to go the other direction.
Secrecy sensing spells, like, doesn't Umbridge put those on her office door? Like, so at least there's an alert that somebody's trying to get in.
Yeah.
No, like, security is terrible.
Or maybe Dumbledore does have those spells, and then he's able to like look into some glass and see, oh, it's those kids. I wonder what's going to happen. Like, it wouldn't surprise me that Dumbledore has those set up everywhere, and he's just watching things as they progress, and then he's like, all right, I see what's going on here. Maybe that could explain why he does let Harry, like, why he would give Harry the chance to go as far as he does if he's it's still horrible.
Yeah, it is
to do that to an 11-year-old, let them push the boundaries to the point of being murdered, but whatever.
Like, so they automatically decide, like, it's either get eaten by this dog or get caught by Filch. We're gonna get caught by Filch, who has already scurried off. And they get back to the common room and they just flop into chairs. Like,
gotta catch your breath.
And Ron's like, what are they doing keeping a dog like that locked up in here? It needs some exercise. Which, then you gotta think about it. Poor Fluffy.
I'm sure Hagrid goes up to visit her. I'm sure Hagrid goes up to visit Fluffy regularly, though.
I'm sure Hagrid likes Fluffy a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I could just see Fluffy like bounding up and licking him.
And if Hermione could have kept her mouth shut, then they would have ended that adventure right then and there. But because she says, "Didn't you see what it's guarding? It's on a trap door, which means it's hiding something." And then that leads to Harry being curious and all these other things that come about. And thus begins their want for adventure.
Yes. I do like, he's like, I think I found out where that grubby little package went. But we get Hermione's iconic line in this chapter. Yes. And I was so excited by it because this is how I felt about college. Not high school. I did not like high school, but college. Like, this is how I felt about college. Like, oh my God, anything that would possibly jeopardize me going back to school. Like, but, so I love this. I hope you're pleased with yourselves. We could have been killed or worse, expelled. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to bed. Could have been killed or worse, expelled. Love it, love it, love it. That is my favorite line, possibly of the whole book.
The thing about it is that that's almost a theme of some of this, though, because Voldemort, his whole thing is there's nothing worse than being killed. And Dumbledore mentions at some point that there are worse things than being killed. And to Hermione at this point, it's being expelled. But like we see Neville's parents later, and that is worse. And I can't even imagine that the other things that could be worse case scenarios that where you just want to beg for death because the point that you're living in is so horrific. So,
the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. So we end with that cliffhanger of there's where that package is hiding. At least we think, because we know we got it out of Gringotts. We know somebody was after it at Gringotts. We're pretty sure. And it's interesting, like knowing all the things we know and having read the book and stuff like that. I wish like I could just not remember and read this again for the first time and have that sense of anticipation.
See, it's so weird that Gringotts is so well guarded. Like they have dragons, they've got security trolls, they have all of those spells that like when they go in, when they sense their disguises, they're washed away from that.
Oh, the thief.
And then Hogwarts, it's how many things you got to get through in Hogwarts as well.
But how many people, but here's the other piece to that. How many people have access to Hogwarts?
So many though, don't they? Or not as many as Gringotts, because Gringotts is public and Hogwarts is a private school.
Well,
but I was thinking if you've gone to Hogwarts before, then you're very familiar with everything that it holds.
But you wouldn't know necessarily, like it would be out of character for another adult to be in Hogwarts. It's mostly like, because I think in the fourth book when Harry ends up in the Pensive, he's like, this room can't be, he's looking and he's like, the room can't be at Hogwarts. There's not that many adults. And realistically, the children should not be able to get through these enchantments.
Alohomora, come on now.
Well, Fluffy, the troll.
Yeah. Although, I mean, Harry and Ron, again, being first years, take on a troll later. And Fluffy is playing some music. I don't know about in Britain, but they teach us how to play a recorder here in like third grade. And that's essentially like Harry doesn't play it well. He just plays it and it puts him to sleep. Yeah, you don't even need to play music well or for long. He just instantly, the second you hit a note, he starts sleeping.
I don't know. I feel like it could have been better guarded, but
then we wouldn't have a story.
Yep. Although I would have been tripped up. I probably could have got through like the logic. I would have been tripped up by the chess game. I am not a good chess player.
Oh yeah. That's what's really cool about it though, is that they use those types of mind game. Like it's more than witchcraft, or not witchcraft, but it's more than magic.
Yes.
You have to have some ounce of logic. And even Hermione is good at figuring out the logic puzzles, but not so much being strategic in chess, because there's a difference there. I'm excellent at logic problems, but I suck at chess because I'm not that good at strategizing.
I'm not good at chess.
I would need pen and paper to figure out the actual potions one.
Yeah, I'd have to write it down.
I wouldn't be able to do it in my head like Hermione was.
But
and even then, I'd be terrified to try it out.
Good. Many great wizards are absolutely terrible at logic.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the end of the chapter.
Yeah. So the audiobooks, they didn't have too much difference. The toward and towards was throughout this a lot because they're going many directions and stuff. So whenever they're going toward or towards something, so that one was just repeated several times. But there's football versus soccer, post versus mail. It's in the audiobooks when they're going out to the are they practicing their brooms on the Quidditch pitch or just out in the yard? Does it say?
I don't remember. It does tell like what direction, but I don't.
Whichever way they're going in the audiobooks, they're going to they're walking on the smooth lawn. And in the book, it's the smooth, flat lawn. So they just get rid of the word flat in the audiobooks. So when Malfoy is teasing him about the Remember All, he says he's going to leave it somewhere for Neville to collect versus find. About turn versus about face. They're in their dressing gowns instead of their bathrobes.
I picked that up because later on in the book series, they do use dressing gowns as opposed to bathrobes.
And then when Filch is there, he says, "Don't mess me about, Peeves," instead of "Don't mess with me, Peeves." And there is, the way that Stephen Fry says Malfoy sometimes, it sounds weird in my ears. Like and I can't really describe how he says Malfoy. Like, it's almost like he separates it out and holds the oi a little longer or adds like an extra at the end. It's hard to explain. So, and I know you have the American versions, so you don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
You might not know what I'm talking about when he says I have no idea because I differently. But he does say Malfoy, and sometimes it says Malfoy. Like, it's almost like there's a pause in the middle of it and extended on the end, and it drives me nuts sometimes when I hear him say it like that. I'm like, why does he say it so weird? Maybe it's just me, though. I don't know. That's our perspective. Let us know yours in the comments below. And before we go, we would like to thank our editor, Alan, our families, our listeners. Remember to like, share, subscribe, support. And until next time, stay safe, keep faith. Good night.